Welcome to our very first Career Readiness Community of Practice in 2022. My name is Karen Smith. I am from the Department of Public Instruction. So happy to see you guys here this morning as we talk today about engaging administrators and school board members as a part of developing a culture of career readiness in your school district. Before we get started today, just want to take a pause and let you guys know I've been thinking a lot about you over the break. It feels like forever since we've been together with the holidays, the new year, and just the craziness going on in our world today. So I just want to start out by taking a second to check in with you, see how everyone's doing, and find out, what do you need at this moment in time? So I'm going to invite you right now to go into the chat, either right now or as you kind of think about it throughout our session, and let us know, what do you need most from us? So as we are here at DPI on our career and technical education team, trying to support you, as our CISAs are working tirelessly to support you, I really, want to hear your ideas on what you need most. We tend to be really focused on churning out professional development and, resources and things like that. But, things are really tough right now. Our job is challenging under the most, the best circumstances right now with COVID and sub shortages and, kids being in quarantine. It's really tough. So if there's anything that we can be doing to support you that we aren't doing already right now, we really want to know. And again, invite you to put that in the chat as we get started this morning. So let's go ahead and with that, let's go ahead and get started. You know me, I'm always excited about our career readiness community of practice topics. And this whole year, we've been really focusing on all the different elements we need to think about when we're trying to create a culture of career readiness in our school district. And we know that, things like teacher buy-in, is certainly important and is going to get you far. But it's also equally, if not more important, to really have your leaders, your district leaders engaged. So today we're really going to focus on how do you engage those school administrators and school board members to partner with you in this journey of building career readiness resources, activities, making sure your students graduate career ready. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to our hosts today. We've got Jesse, Amanda, and Darla, and I'll let you guys take it away.
I'll start. Good morning, I'm Darla Burton with CISA 3 ACP Coordinator.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amanda Langer. I'm one of the Instructional Service Directors at CISA 4.
And good morning, I'm Jessie Sloan, also an Instructional Service Director at CISA 4. So the plan for today is just to go over these 3 bullet points. We're going to share with you information that you can work with your administrator and school staff. And we have a live roundtable to assist with different experiences. And then we also have resources to use with your administrators and school board members so that we can interact with each other and understand different resources. And then at the very end, we're going to go into our usual breakout rooms per your CISA region so that you have some time to do a little bit of work and do some preparation and feel comfortable with the information we're going to present. So I'm going to turn it over to our next part.
Yep, so we are really excited to have some individuals kind of from the field joining us today. And again, we've been having some internet issues this morning. So as we get rolling here, if we're in and out, we'll do our best to connect with everyone. But joining us today to really have the conversation about how do we really engage and connect with our school administrators and our school board members, really to kind of move career readiness forward. We have with us today Keel Arneson, our administrator at CISA 4, Jamie Nutter, our administrator at CISA 3, Robert Booty, our principal at Westby High School, and Christy Tainter, a school counselor at Westby High School as well. So we are thrilled that they are able to join and kind of share, like I said, some of the resources and ideas and experience from the field. So what we did is set up essentially some questions to kind of guide the roundtable, but I would encourage everyone as you're listening, and if you have questions that are coming from the comments or conversation that's being had as part of this roundtable, please go ahead. And I know Karen is really great about monitoring the chat. So we'll try and pull those questions. We did warn our presenters that there may be questions from the group, and if we don't have answers to those right away, we will be able to follow up after today's event. So with that said, we will go ahead and get started, and in true roundtable fashion, I won't assign our first speaker, but if there is a need or follow-up question, I'll go ahead and kind of ask those as we're going through. So we are going to start with really grounding ourselves in what is the purpose of our school board, because oftentimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day grind of the work that we're doing, whether it's with our academic and career planning or just simply our classroom curriculum, that we forget about the system as a whole. And so when we talk about educators working with our school board and building those relationships, we really wanted to pose to our group in terms of how we share with our admin and our school board, what is that purpose of our school board, and what do you have as recommendations for how we can work with our school board members? And so Jamie or Keel, as prior administrators, I'm going to one of you two to kick off the conversation on that piece.
So probably the biggest influence of the school board is the relationship with the administrator. Oftentimes they trust the administrators to run the day-to-day operations. However, they are on there for a purpose. They're also very busy people. So they not only serve on their school boards, they serve on their church councils, they serve on the Chamber of Commerce, they serve on multiple committees and groups throughout your communities. And they have interactions with people who perceive that they have influence. And so just based on my own story, I was aware of CTE and the incentives and how it worked. But when I would meet with our local CISA rep, Tom Martin, he would tell me about it. And then especially when Act 59 was first coming out with incentives, and it was, he was telling about the opportunity for $10,000 or $15,000. I'm running an $8 million budget, and I'm like, oh, that's great. But why don't you go over and talk to the high school principal? They deal with the things like $8,000 to $10,000 or $15,000. And so oftentimes we're so focused on money that we don't think about the experiences. When I got to this side of it, I really thought about, I really learned about the whole program, and it's more than just money. The money is just an added benefit, right? And so school boards are very influenced by the experience, but then on top of it, they can get some incentive money. Also, they want to do very well for business and industry in their communities. So when they're on the chamber board and when they're on industry and economic development, and they hear from programs like our youth apprenticeships or industry certifications, that makes people look good. They want to look good. So we want to do it for the right reasons, but making them look good and making their status important in the community is also very influential.
Yeah, Jamie's right that a lot of what you need to do is understand what the board's focus is and how supportive they are of your programs, and learning that or knowing that, because some communities just love CTE. They're very supportive. They understand it, but most school boards, their hearts are in the right place, and they care about kids and they care about programs that help all kids. So they're going to be interested in what you can do to help their kids. So one of the important things to do is to educate them. A lot of boards, they really appreciate it when students come in front of them and talk about what they're working on and what they're doing, or you highlight programs. So if you can get in front of the board and just showcase, a little bit what kinds of things are happening because of the program, and share that with them, they're going to much more likely going to be supportive and ready to act, and they'll remember when a vote comes up, because most of what they do is voting just to approve things or not approve them. And the more familiar they are, the easier it is for them, like Jamie said, the easier it is for them to say, oh, I know this is a good program. I know it helps kids. Yep, I support this, this is a good thing. So yeah, that's any kind of showcasing or presentation you can do, any good news you can share, keep them, sort of visible to the board is going to help when you need them to support you.
Absolutely. Those are really great takeaways. And what I'm really hearing is that, again, as we're grounding ourselves in this work and we're suggesting what is the purpose of interacting with our school board and our administrators, if we're asking ourselves, is there a shared vision? Or we obviously know there is a shared vision within our districts, but is there also that shared story? Being able to communicate those highlights, being able to communicate those experiences really can help to build that strong relationship. That's great to hear. So that really takes us kind of into that second question here. And you did a nice job of kind of leading into that in terms of how we're building relationships, not just with our administration and our school board, but also how can those relationships take us one step further out into our communities? And so as we consider that, we ask ourselves, what role does labor market information play into the decisions that are made by administrative teams and school boards? And with that in mind, so if you can share with us what those decision-making procedures are, how is it that we then as educators or as our ACP teams can turn around and share the work that we're doing to align with that? So I guess speaking to what is the knowledge that our school boards and administrative teams have of labor market information?
I think that's, again, Jamie made a good point. It kind of depends on their connectedness to organizations within a district or who they represent. Many of them, in a lot of our communities, there'll be somebody who's a farmer and they want to speak for the farmers in the community, but you should also have people who represent the larger businesses in your community if you really want to have, an impactful board. So I think, again, knowing what their connected interests are, like Jamie said, is a key to getting started. But then what school boards, most of their decisions are made are simply to stay within the budget. They want to be fiscally responsible. They want to understand where the money flows, where it's coming and going. And they want to make decisions that are good for the district, good for the students, especially, but good for the community. So programs that help show, you've all probably been doing this for years, and you bring in community partners and you give them an award and you recognize them and you make them, like Jamie said, you make them look good. They're your partners, and it's good to have a reciprocal relationship where you're getting something from them, but you want to help give them something too. And a lot of that is, it's goodwill, good PR, good relations. So showcasing their contributions also in a way that makes that partnership visible, because the board, again, is going to be, they approve the partnership, or they approve the memo of understanding, or they approve the budget, but the more they're aware of what's going on, what the work that you're doing, the better they're going to be able to support that.
So my role as a counselor is a little bit different from the administration side of things. And so as the ACP coordinator and high school counselor, we are always looking at how our ACP program and our CTE classes that we are teaching are impacting the community. So we're constantly reviewing the types of that we are offering to our students, prepare them for certain career fields, while also recognizing the skill sets that we are missing. And so we're constantly having those conversations with employers to find out what our students are needing to be successful in their professional world.
And there are programs that a lot of us have experience with, like manufacturing tours, taking kids out on tours to visit businesses. You know, having career days and bringing kids in. As a counselor, I'm sure you've done that before too. You're getting people in to speak to kids. You know, they're looking for employers in the future. They're looking for students that can come out and people that will continue to live in your community and work in your community. So that relationship is really important. You know, where do you have the connection? And you can't just go to them one day and say, hey, you know, can you help us with this? It's that ongoing, those programs that you have and those opportunities to bring them in and speak to kids or talk to your teachers about what they need. You talk to folks, you know, and then again, highlighting that and showcasing it, because those relationships, as I said before, I've preached this in the past about the reciprocity. You know, you can't just expect to take from people. You know, you want to help them look good. You want to help them with their business too.
We've actually been really lucky to have such a supportive school board and administration team that our admin team actually decided a couple years ago, this was pre-COVID, that we were going to use our professional development days to explore our communities. And so these professional development days allowed for us to take our entire teaching staff, so K-12, out into our community to visit different businesses, to help us learn more about that business, the careers within that field, but most importantly, how we can work together. I think that this experience has been very eye-opening, especially for our teachers that weren't as involved within the ACP process, because they found some great ways to incorporate different ACP ideas into the regular curriculum. But I think the biggest takeaway of this experience was we were able to put faces to the businesses within our community. And that has really helped us work together as we have those career days, have those guest speakers, because we've been able to come together and really find that common goal, which has made those relationships much more meaningful for everyone involved in this process.
Yeah, and you guys do such a great job behind the scenes. You're so busy engaging with businesses and students that you don't tell your story to administrators and to school boards. And there's nothing that makes us administrator school board more proud than having their ACP coordinator come in and talk about the connections, and even reaching out, as Keel said earlier, as you know, as we're talking about this, because when's the only time we're engaging businesses from the administrative or board level? Probably a referendum or when we need something. And what happens when we don't need something, when we ask the question to the businesses, hey, what do you need from us? What are you seeing out there as far as etiquette from our graduates? What are we seeing as far as professional behavior? How's the work ethic? Are people showing up on time? Do they have the skills? Provide some input for us so that we can incorporate some of that. And then they feel like it's a two-way street. And then when it comes down the road, when we need them for something else, they can tell our story. Hey, the school is doing a good job. They reached out. I know we had a local school, a local school district, for example, that was having some issues with cell phones in the classrooms. And they reached out to a local manufacturer and said, hey, can you provide your cell phone policy during work time for us? And they brought that back to the students and said, hey, here's the cell phone policy that some of our local businesses have. If that's what you're going to have to do someday, you're going to have to do that in the classroom. And so so the businesses really, really appreciate that and building that two-way street.
There really have been some excellent examples here. And I think it just really keeps bringing us back to that conversation of sharing your story. And it's the opportunity, engaging with your administrators and engaging with your school board gives you the opportunity to share your story. And the more that we can make everyone in our district aware of the excellent opportunities and the excellent experiences that are occurring, the better everyone can help to provide support to the programming. So I know we kind of hit on this question already. You did a really nice job of tying this into question number 2, but really when we think of the line of, or think along the lines of creating a talent pipeline within our community, and obviously our schools aren't designed as factories, but we do have this unique opportunity to tap into each and every student and help them identify their passion and really their purpose for their future. But how is it that we can twofold, because again, we're working with those of you who are currently in a school district and those of you who have served time in school districts. How is it that we work to keep our local talent local? In our region, especially in the CISA 4 and CISA 3 region, we do see that demographic concern in years to come. And we see this all throughout the state of Wisconsin of kind of this exodus of our talent. So as we're working with our school board and administrators, how do we value our students and how do we keep our school board involved in that process? So we're kind of meeting this as a two-prong approach of keeping our kids in our area while building relationships and making sure that our students and our families are aware of those relationships.
A lot of our school boards have student representatives, so it's a good question to ask too if your boards have student representatives. And boards are pretty good about asking those students for input on things that are going on around the school, but usually they ask them a little bit for insight on how things are going with particular issues. I think about when I was a superintendent, I used to take the students of the month to the Rotary meeting every month, and it was a good opportunity for them. But one of the things that the Rotary always did was always ask the students, because they were concerned about the most talented kids leaving and never coming back, they would ask them, what are your plans after, because you're a senior now, what are your plans after graduation? And they would ask them, what's the thing you like best about our community? Or what's something that we need to change in the school or the community or whatever? What's something, I know the superintendent's sitting there, but go ahead and he can take it. What do you need to change? They were really good about that because they really cared about getting input from kids. And so they would, talk to them about, well, we really would want you to come back, and they would offer support if they knew a connection or if they knew something to say, hey, if you're really interested in this field, I know a guy, I can, you can meet him and talk to him. And they would do that because they were trying to keep students interested. But I think, tapping into that, one of the things is that being proactive about, you got to ask kids, and you can't just ask them, why are you leaving and never coming back? You have to ask them, what is it that you really wish you had here that you don't have? What is it you really like here? And what is it that you don't like here? And keep talking about those things so that you can maybe address those within the community too.
I love that. And it's especially important as we talk about student voice and really engaging with our students and our families through the academic and career planning process. I think, Kale, you hit right on that with bringing the students into that conversation and kind of bringing them to the conversation.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, when we think about the motivation from people in our communities, as a parent who has adult children, what's the number one goal that I want for them? I want them to be happy. I want them to be as successful as they can. And if they can do that locally so that I can see my grandchildren someday so that they're close, that would be nice too. That would be the win-win. Ultimately, when we think about our students leaving us to pursue those careers that they want to pursue, and they're not here. And I think we have to think about, I think about my role when I was on the Industrial and Economic Development Corporation, and we would hear all of the people from our communities try to recruit the big fish, right? The 50 or 60 employers. Somebody's going to come in and get employers. And then we started shifting that thinking a little bit, saying, what happens instead of getting one employer, which is very challenging, who will hire 50 or 60 people? What happens if we get 8 or 10 of our local students to all hire 4 or 5, right? It gets the same net result, yet we're going to have more involvement in our communities because they're likely going to be our grads. We think about, and if you think about in your communities, the world is so global. They can probably take those companies and they can plant them anywhere they want in the United States and probably be successful. But what holds them here? It holds them, it's their family, it's their roots. And so the likelihood of keeping those people here are at an early age, especially at that high school level, starting having those conversations with our students about the importance, about how we need them. Go work for somebody for a couple of years. And when you're ready to start a business, come and see us. and connecting them. And I think when you look at this full circle, when we talk to our employers who are talking about the shortage, that they aren't getting enough workers, when we talk to families who say my children are moving away, I think bringing that conversation to our school boards and setting some expectations and setting some goals. And I think the goals are really important, because otherwise we're just engaging in a bunch of activities and hoping for the best. If we can have targets and if we can have specific goals, then that's going to drive those strategies and those relationships that we have with our boards. And again, I think a lot of people in this group do amazing work, and you just don't give yourself enough credit, because there's a lot of superintendents like me, when I was sitting in there saying, okay, take that $8,000 to $10,000, talk to the high school principal, and it never gets elevated. And so telling your story in front of the school board at a school board meeting once or twice and talking about progress with targets, I think elevates that conversation.
I think it's also important to remind ourselves that students only know what they know. And so when they look at kind of those big employers within your community, sometimes they only see the traditional jobs. And so, for example, a student might be really interested in IT, but doesn't want to be a nurse. So they're like, I can't work at the hospital, and that's the biggest employer in our area. So it's important to let the kids know that there's so many different levels and facets of careers within each of our big businesses. And so as we are creating our career fair for this year, we are actually looking at it through the lens of these are the different careers that are available within this business. So we're not just making those stereotypical connections for students. We're showing that in the hospital, there's nursing, there's marketing, there's IT, so that students can see the different ways that their interests can fit into their current community.
Absolutely. You all have just shared so many great experiences and ideas. I think as I'm jotting down notes, I'm going page by page. But really, I mean, it continues to bring us back to this idea of building that relationship with your administrators and your school board really helps you to be able to bring forward your experiences and your stories together, so that together, everyone within the district, within the community can work together to really ultimately build that culture of success. So as we head into the last 3 minutes of our roundtable here, question number 4 does a nice job of kind of summarizing everything we've talked about to this point. So I'm going to give you the opportunity in speaking to how does academic and career planning and career pathways help your district? How, or are there any last words of advice or wisdom that you would like to share with these? Because I think you've hit on all of these pieces, but kind of bringing it all together here as we're working with our admin teams and our school boards, what last pieces of advice do you have for the group?
I think one of the things that's important is to keep educating the community, because sometimes it's difficult for you as individuals. You're working on this every day and you're so well versed in it. And you know, you've talked to the community, or if you've made presentations, or you've gone on a tour and you've done that, but you know what, you got to keep doing it every year. And maybe it helps us that we always have a new crop of students coming up. And so give them the same experience and take them through the same things, because people move on, people have other challenges, other things they deal with, and you've got to sort of stay in their sights a little bit, where you want to keep, like Jamie said, you know, you keep the contact going, you have a relationship, like Amanda said, that you keep building that and working on it, but don't assume that they remember what you talked to them about last year. You've got to come back, and you've always got to come in and sort of be fresh about it. Like, hey, you know, this is something great we're doing this year, and we've added 3 kids here, and you know, and you just kind of have to always do that, because they're changing staff, or they're changing folks, or you've got to, you know, keep, I guess, updating them, you know, keep them current too. And sometimes you know, that's hard to do, but they need it. You know, when you're on that other side of that, they don't see kids every day. They don't touch base with schools every day. And it's usually a nice thing for them that they will appreciate.
Yeah, and think about the ones, some of the administrators are really involved with this because it's a passion. They're juggling the budget, they're juggling curriculum, they're juggling HR, teacher shortages, COVID, all of these things that they're juggling. And this is important to them, but it's just one of those things. And so, but they still believe in it, and they trust all of you to get that work done. And I just think that a lot of times it's really important to how we can tell them how the school will look good. I mean, if you look at any website anymore, we have badges, we have US News and World Report. They're just covered with as many recognitions as they can because they want that credibility and they want looking good. So any opportunities that you have to make your administrator and school board look good, whether you have 7 students you talk about or 20 students you talk about, with that connection from school to post-secondary or to employment, they're always excited and they always look good, because ultimately your work is a reflection of their leadership. That's how it's viewed. So anytime you get in front of the school board, anytime you get in front of administrators, they gleam a little bit, because they're like, yeah, I helped them do that. I mean, even though you did 99.9% of the work. So it's your opportunity to leverage that to provide more opportunities for your students.
And sometimes you have to go seek those opportunities. Being present in the community is a huge factor in my role as a building principal, and looking in windows and looking for job wanted signs and trying to help out the schools and to connect students. You know, we have school to work opportunities, youth opportunities that can happen school day or before and after school. Doing little things, buying gift certificates to give up to students on door prize giveaways that are right here in the local community. And sometimes you go and you ask for a certificate, but budgeting for that in your own building budget to make those purchases, and then to go in the community and to shop yourself, it pays huge dividends. And school board members see in the community, and the chamber sees you out, and they're willing to have those conversations and strike up those conversations that you otherwise wouldn't have unless you are present in the community. And so I think that's a huge factor. Students see you out in the community, families do, and you bring that back to the school board as well. Like you mentioned, Jamie and Keel, bringing one student in and just talk about their experiences, having a former student come in and talk about, what they did for a summer internship in one business, go up to college, come back for another internship at a local bank and talk about financing and not having that brain drain, but bring those brains back in during the summers and talk with your local Chamber of Commerce, or come to a meeting and just talk about their experiences, gaining experiences away from your community, and then wanting to come back because of the experiences they had here at school and in our community.
Amanda, we do have a question that came in the chat. So Rose is wondering, how are you tapping into the underserved student population for this work? Also curious about how you're introducing this work to families and parents and caregivers.
So I think I'll give our roundtable kind of a chance to consider this, but I do think that involving our family and our caregivers, number one, we know that as part of developing a successful academic and career planning process, that really is number one, because if we don't have strong buy-in from our students and our families at home, we know that we're going to face an even greater struggle when we're in the school system. So I think really building in and tying in and sharing these experiences, sharing many of these same experiences that we're sharing with our administrators and our school board, I think it's also necessary to make sure that you're getting out and sharing that with your parents and your families. But I think along those lines, it's exactly what Bob said, and it's being present, being available. If you're out in your local communities, you're not just running into your businesses and your business owners, but you're also running into your families and being able to have conversations about what it is that you're doing out and about. So I think we have a lot of learning to do there as well, but I think that that's one good step, is just being there, being present, and being available. In terms of our underserved youth, I think that's an area too that oftentimes we maybe overlook in terms of sharing the successes there as well. As educators, I feel like we're embedded in this mindset of we're going to be modest and we're not going to share our successes, and we're not going to put out there all of the great things we're doing all the time, because we don't always want to talk about ourselves. But as Jesse's going to get to in a minute with our data and what types of things can we share that are successes, I think identifying what we're doing really, really right, so that we can also, though, in that same vein, identify maybe where our challenges or our gaps are, so that if we're looking at, we have 25 students, what does that student population look like? Who are those students? And do we have gaps in those areas? We know in our comprehensive local needs assessments with our CTE groups, we're starting to do that work. But I think if we can tie our academic and career planning teams with that same data-driven decision-making process, I think we have the ability to do some really great things here. And I'll turn it to our roundtable too to see.
No,
So
I think that's, oh, go ahead.
I think for us, COVID has kind of forced us to go back to the drawing board. And so we are in the process of kind of completely revamping our entire ACP process because we've learned so much about what our students need and how much more technology savvy we are than we thought we were. So we are actually having these conversations with our CTE teachers, our regular ed teachers, and our community to really recreate our graduate profile. So we know what type of students we are going to be sending out into the professional world. And so that we can also promise the community, these are the skills that our students are going to have gained just through the experiences here in our district. And we promise you that they can do X, Y, and Z, and they will be contributing citizens, but also strong professionals. So we're really kind of taking that step back to figure out how we can move forward to make sure we're best meeting the needs of all students within our district.
And I was going to say, I think what Bob said was really important too. I think a few years back, I was a principal in Atlanta, Georgia. So I was principal of a high school of 2,300 kids, and over 1,700 of the kids were minority students. And it was a fairly poor school. And you know, you work, like Bob said, all the time, you know, talking with folks and listening to people and going out and trying to help build relationships. You go to community meetings with community groups and do different things. But I had an experience where there was a restaurant, Carrabba's was a restaurant, it's a restaurant chain, but they were a restaurant there in that community. And I actually was there for dinner with my wife, and the manager came out because some of the kids went back and said, "Hey, Mr. Arnson's here." And so he came out and said hi and started visiting with us. And he said, I didn't know this, but he said he had a weekly check-in on kids that they had to bring in a grade report. He had hired a lot of Latino kids, and he was Latino himself, but he would check their grades and keep up with them, and they had to bring a good report if they wanted to keep getting hours. And if they started to slip, he'd cut back their hours. And I didn't know that he did all that. And so that was really good information. But he said, you know, the kids really like you, and they appreciate that you listen to them and you talk with them and you treat them with respect. And I'm like, okay, good feedback too. Well, I took that and went back to the counselors and said, hey, did you know that this employer is doing this? And they were like, no, we didn't realize. And so it just was sharing that information. And so they started working on building that and asking the kids about it and following up with them. But, you know, it's just because of the relationships that you have that connection. You're helping out students that, you know, they had something going in a good program, and it was helping some of our neediest kids. And they, you know, just making sure that continued was, you know, well worth the effort.
Yeah, and I think especially when we're looking at students who traditionally don't get opportunities for youth apprenticeships or for internships, I think it has to be a conscious effort. You know, I think oftentimes we have to challenge ourselves to think, are students learning because of their backgrounds at home, because they have all kinds of support? And so they're going to pick that up regardless of what we do in school? Or is school the difference maker? Are we the drivers? Are we making the change? And so sometimes we have to ask ourselves that question. And when we think about students who haven't traditionally had those opportunities, then that has to be an outcome. And then that's going to drive some of those practices, and that's going to drive how we recruit, how we talk with other people in our communities.
Right, and this is Darla. And to Jamie's point too, you know, what's good for special ed is good for everyone, right? And special ed has been doing ACP forever. What's an IEP but an academic and career plan? And so we need to remember to include special ed in all of these areas, include all students as we're planning their academic and career plan. And we know that a lot of the students with special needs remain in the community and everyone can work. So I think it's just starting those processes sooner for students with special ed and making sure that we're offering them lots of varied opportunities for them to experience those things and have some choices by the time they graduate.
Yeah, and I think that's really an excellent springboard into the kind of next part of this morning's conversation. And that really is being intentional in the stories that you're sharing and the relationships that you're building so that we can expand our opportunities that exist within academic and career planning. So with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Jesse, and a big thank you to our roundtable today for sitting in and helping add to the conversation. You all were wonderful. We really appreciate it.
All right, this next session or section of our presentation is going to go over some resources to help everyone tell their story, but also be able to read some of the data that is out there. So as we are coming to a conclusion of the month of January, we're going to enter the month of February, which is an excellent opportunity for CTE teachers and school counselors to showcase much of what they do. So February is CTE month. And the first week in February, or assuming the second week in February this year, February 7th, is School Counselor Week. So many of our schools do some pre-forma presentations during this month for CTE and school counselors. And we're going to help you out and encourage you to showcase your academic career planning and career readiness. But also give you some background on some data that's been collected across the state for each school district, so that you can help inform and tell your story to your school board, work with your administrators, and then also think about how to share this with families as well as your colleagues. So this first part here, we have a template slide that we created for you. It'll look kind of similar to what we're presenting today. You'll be able to make a copy of it and then be able to go in and put in your own data numbers. And we are going to go through these next bullet points to explain where this information already lives so that you have easy access. And then the goal is that you'll be able to review and look at your data information and then be able to inform your school board, have good quality conversations with your administration, and then to also be able to share with families, parents, and the community what's really happening in your school. So this template slide brings you to a slide deck that we created. When you click on it, it's going to force you to make a copy, and then you can go through and add your own information. I'm going to encourage that you take some pictures, some action shots of your programs and students so that your school board, your administrators, your community can really get the feel for your story. Then we have district data. And so many times we hear school report cards, and sometimes people get kind of down on it because they don't always understand the background to school report cards. So we want to make this a little easier, but also this is a strong tool for all of us to utilize to get some of the information that our roundtable presenters have already talked about. So this is the school report card link. It goes to the public viewing portion. And I'll do a quick screenshot for you. So you'll go into that link. You can pick any school year, but the last school year, 2021, is the most recent report. And you can find your district here, and then you'll be able to get into your public view. So many times we do have business partners that do go in and look at our school report cards, but may not completely understand the data on there. And this is our opportunity to explain it to them. So we are sharing the true story. So within this school report card, my favorite place to look is around page 8 or 9. I believe this is the snippet in the corner of page 9 for a high school report card. And it's just an example. So it's not necessarily true to any school. But oftentimes we struggle with, what do these areas mean? What is advanced courses, dual enrollment, industry recognized credentials, and work-based learning? And so what we wanted to do is provide you with the direct links to DPI's website with definitions. So I'm just going to quickly go through them so you have a landing spot, and then you'll have access to these slides, and then you can review the links at your leisure. So when you view your school report card on page 9, it's going to have advanced courses, and it's going to give you a school percentage, which means that's what your school reported last year, and then the state percentage. So you can easily kind of determine, where are you? If you see zeros, I'm going to just relax. We're going through some new data collection, and sometimes we just didn't know we needed to report, and that's okay. So from this point moving forward, take this opportunity to look at and examine what's already happening and create your presentation to share with your school board, so that we make this better next year, because you're already doing the work. It's just a matter of how you're informing others. Okay. So advanced courses are advanced placement, our AP courses that are approved by College Board, and International Baccalaureate if your school participates in that program. Okay. Then we have dual enrollment, and so we linked the dual enrollment to DPI's website. And basically that's going to be all of the courses that our students take that are early college credit program, Start College Now, transcripted, advanced standing, or any other college credit agreement that we have with colleges and universities or tech schools. So that's what dual enrollment means. Then we have industry recognized credentials. And this becomes oftentimes new learning for most of the individuals in our school district and school boards. Our CTE teachers tend to be very well versed, but we need to share that information basically at a student level. So our students understand, by taking this course and doing this, I can earn this industry recognized credential that can help me get a job in my local community. So this link will take you to a DPI PDF document that looks like a lot of definitions, and that's exactly what it is. So what you're going to do on this document is look at program name, which is the second column, and you can go through with your CTE department and truly understand, based on the courses they teach, do they have associated industry recognized credentials, which is under the program name column. And you can see all the different opportunities that we have in the state, that we recognize in the state of Wisconsin, as well as nationally. And then be able to look at, do we offer these in our courses? And then have we communicated these credentials to our business partners so they understand the qualifications our students graduate with from our particular school district. The next one is work-based learning. So you see on your school report card, work-based learning. And this is the new DPI definition of work-based learning, and there's 6 components. So you can go into that and read about it, but ultimately we need to look at the courses that we have and the opportunities that we have that fit into the work-based learning category to be able to understand these numbers. But most importantly, we need to be able to present to our students, to our school board and our administrative team, this is the exact opportunity and this is how a student can access it. And then if we look at all the populations of students in our school district, how do we share this information with them so they can make the decision to participate in work-based learning opportunities? And that's truly the showcase in the story. So a moment ago, we had a question about looking at all of our participation groups and the population that we serve. And so on your school report card, it's going to be defined under student group participation. So I just gave you a tiny little snippet just because it doesn't show real nice on a slide deck. But when you go into your school report card and look at page 9, this is actually a graph in percentages of special populations in Carl Perkins terms that we utilize to view data into different groups of populations within your school. So I'm going to encourage you to come in and really look at that so you can see who or what makes up the body of our students? Who are they? What is their race, ethnicity? What groups do they belong to? And then do we need to go in and look further depth into our school district for other groups to examine how they're getting access to these areas? So the final link on here is outside of DPI link, and it's the youth apprenticeship data from DWD. So I'm going to just drag over another page. And this is also what I really like to look at. And I'm sorry, it's going to load real quick. So you can take this link and you can go into your school district. You can pick your district and you can begin to look at the years. And I'm just going to look at 21, 22 and 2021, because I like to look at last year and this year and be able to start telling the story of my district. And I just generically have a state up right now. So what this does is it looks at different program areas and it's telling you participation rates. And then I'm going to have, you need to go in and explore it, but at least you have the easy link to be able to start to begin this work. This is an excellent way to begin to tell your story and the participation rates of students utilizing youth apprenticeship in your school district, and then being able to inform your school board and your coworkers and your community about how students are participating, but also being employed after high school and how we prepared them. So to try to think about how to tell your story, we really want to connect, building relationships, connections between career readiness, academic career planning, our career and technical education courses, and our regional career pathways. And so another thing to add into a presentation in front of a school board or to work with your admin team, and also you can use the same information with community and business partners, is that we can identify the regional career pathways and the sequence of courses that we utilize in our district, as well as the partnerships we have with colleges and technical or universities and technical colleges. And then what is it that's in demand in our region? What are the businesses wanting so we can help direct our students? Sharing that template and explaining it to a school board is going to be really important for buy-in and community integration. And so just a thought as we get ready to go into our breakout rooms is career readiness is the goal. Academic career planning is the process, and the process leads to regional career pathways.